So something really simple like saying, I don't do Zoom on a Friday. So when someone asks you, let's put in a Zoom, you can offer them the 4 other days of the week and not always automatically saying yes to everything. Because the truth is that you can't do everything. And there's nothing worse than you saying yes and then actually letting someone down last minute. Because I know a ton of lawyers that have a very bad habit of saying, yes, I'll do that. And then, 5 minutes before they're due to deliver, they tell you they haven't done it because they had too much work.
Welcome to the Free Lawyer Podcast. I'm your host, Gary Miles. The Free Lawyer Podcast is designed for the lawyer, entrepreneur, or professional who is in some way unfulfilled, stressed, or stuck and is looking for something better. We will discuss various blocks that limit us from achieving the personal freedom that we all desire, but have not yet fully experienced. And we will give actionable steps to free yourself from them. Are you looking to achieve a new level of success? If so, this podcast is for you. Hey everybody, welcome to the next episode of The Free Lawyer. And I'm so excited to have with us today Lara Quie. Lara comes to us from Singapore, 12 hours away. She's a connector of people. She's been an attorney in a big law firm and now has a really fascinating role working with barristers and coaching lawyers. Lara, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Gary. I'm excited to be on your show.
Well, I'm really glad to have you. Lara, tell me about your background and kind of how you progressed through the legal profession to where you are today.
Well, it's quite a long story, but I won't go into too much detail. I was born in the UK, but raised in the south of Spain. And I knew from quite an early age that I wanted to be a lawyer. My mother was an investment banker who worked with of lawyers in the city, and I thought that being a lawyer would be a great career. In those days, it was something that you chose either to be a lawyer, a banker, or a doctor. So I knew that I wasn't good at the sciences and I wasn't good at maths. So being a lawyer seemed like a good choice. And I really enjoyed English and also other modern languages. So I went to university and I studied French and German. And I knew at that point that having languages was going to benefit me in terms of getting a training contract with a law firm. So I did get a training contract.
Do you speak those languages today?
Oh, well, I would say they're very rusty now, but I can probably get by conversationally in French, German, and Spanish.
Oh,
But
fantastic.
yes, living in Singapore, I don't really get much opportunity to speak those languages, unfortunately.
Fantastic.
Um, but I did get a training contract. So in England, in order to become a qualified lawyer, you go to law school either for 1 or 2 years. And because I did a non-law degree, I did a 1-year conversion called the CPE. And then I did the practical, which is called the legal practice course for a year. And then I went and joined a firm called Denton's. In those days, it was called Wildsapt, but then it merged. So it's now known as Denton's. And I was there for 2 years doing seats for 6 months in 4 different areas of law. And I knew that I wanted to do European antitrust. So after I qualified in year 2000, I went to the European Commission in Brussels and I was there on a traineeship for another 6 months. And then, I joined a firm back in London. It's called Taylor Vessing. And then after that, I moved to DLA Piper and I was there as an associate. But due to many things, mostly long hours culture and the fact that in those days, we didn't have remote work. It was very much at your desk, deadline driven. I was doing merger control. I was doing price fixing, cartel defense work, lots and lots of very deadline driven tasks that
A lot
led
of
to
pressure. A
A
lot of
lot of
pressure and
pressure,
stress.
a lot of stress, a lot of long hours. I was beginning to feel like a slave, and I didn't feel like the environment was particularly caring and nurturing. I did have a lot of very nice people I worked with, but at the same time, there were a lot of very nasty people too.
Hmm.
So it didn't suit my personality. So I decided to leave, retrain as a Montessori nursery school teacher, and start a family of my own. So I had 3 daughters.
Very
And
cool.
yeah, and then I fell into a kitchen business with a former lawyer from DLA, and we started this solid wood bespoke fitted kitchen business from a chalet in my garden. And after doing that for several years, my husband got a job in Hong Kong. So we moved to Hong Kong, and we were there for 3 years. And then we got moved to Singapore, and I decided to start in business development. So now I'm currently, as you mentioned in the introduction, I am the head of business development for a barristers' chambers called 20 Essex.
And so, with that background that you had, some years practicing law and then doing your other business as teacher and having your own side business, how did you then get involved in the business of business development for barristers as you do now?
I think the main thing was that when I was in business development in law firms, so I worked with some really great firms, Winston and Strawn, who you'll know, Jones Day, who you'll know, and then Dwayne Morris, based in Philadelphia. During the times that I was with them, I was able to do a lot of networking. And over time, I began to bring in my own clients. And because of my love of networking and because of my legal background, I was very interested in all of the conferences and attending anything where they were sharing knowledge. And I think that your average business development or marketing person either doesn't get the opportunity to do that, or maybe they don't have the interest. But I certainly did. And when I was out and about, I was able to talk about my firm as a whole and all of the people and lawyers in our firm. And so it led to me bringing in quite a lot of work. And because of that, I think that within Singapore, I got a reputation as someone that was out and about, and I really grew my network. I also was very keen on LinkedIn and growing my personal brand on that. And so when the opportunity came up for this role, I was actually headhunted for this role.
Wow,
Um,
fantastic.
they said, look, we're looking for someone with a network, with profile, who can move from a law firm into a barrister's chambers and raise the profile within Asia, so the Asia Pacific region for 20 Essex. And so that's how I got the role.
Very good. So, in the US, there are a lot of smaller law firms and solo practitioners who obviously don't have a business development person, expert on their team. What suggestions would you have for either a solo lawyer, a law firm, or even a medium-sized firm that doesn't have someone dedicated to that role to develop their business and build their brand as lawyers?
I'd say that actually LinkedIn for the solo practitioner is the most powerful way of building their personal brand and presence online. So obviously it's important that they have a website that represents their business, but having a presence on LinkedIn and being very purposeful about posting consistently will get them noticed. It's very important for them to think about the kind of areas that they focus on and the kind of tone that they want to have. And by posting regularly, if they're quite serious about it, I would suggest maybe 3 times a week, or if they're really dedicated, every weekday, which is what I do. But if they can post things that are interesting and insightful and a mixture, so where they demonstrate what kind of law they focus on, but they also show a bit of their personality as well, I think people begin to get to know them and they'll start to follow them and, like and trust. But most importantly is to engage. It's a social platform. They need to look at what others are saying and they need to comment and support others, but also think about how they can add value. So I know you, Gary, you post a lot of interesting things on LinkedIn. You've really leveraged that platform to the maximum, and certainly that's how we met in the first place.
It is.
So we can thank LinkedIn for that. But lawyers shouldn't be too afraid of LinkedIn. I know that they do have hesitancy to post and to put themselves out there. And so they can start just very gradually commenting on others, really looking at what other successful lawyers are doing. You know, what do they say? Like putting a photo of themselves, let's say, on the steps of the courtroom and the courthouse, and saying, "I'm just going in to, defend my client in this sort of case." That puts them in context, tells people what kind of law they do, and look, there they are, busy defending their client, and then they could have a picture of them having, a hamburger and saying, "Hey, this is my favorite burger place that I go to in my hometown of wherever." But painting a picture of where they are, what they do, who they hang out with, who are their clients, all of that kind of thing can give people a really good idea of who they are.
I think that's wonderful. And what I hear you saying, although you didn't use this word, is authenticity. To authentically portray who you are so that the audience can know you as a person. And sometimes as lawyers, we want to create an image of being in charge, being always right, being authoritative, and we aren't always that perfect. We have flaws, we have concerns, we have fears, and I know you post very authentically, and I think that helps your audience to connect with you.
That's right. It's definitely about the authenticity. And as you say, lawyers are very risk averse and want to be perfect. Certainly, law school promotes that. And obviously, people want to make sure that nothing can be held against them. So they're very cautious about what they write. But I think if you are very intentional about what you want to portray, you don't need to stray into any areas that would be high risk. So as you say, the focus on authenticity and really showing people who you are and your values, and the kinds of clients and the value that you give. I think a lot of very good lawyers have got a fantastic presence on LinkedIn, and they've really leveraged it. And it's just a question of going on there, having a look at some great examples, start to follow them, start to engage, and then to learn all the best tips from them. And you can write things in your own words, but you can emulate in some way. So you don't need to start from scratch.
So sounds like you have two roles now. Tell our audience what you do. You have sort of two things that you do professionally and what they are and how you make them work.
That's right. On Monday to Thursday, I work for 20 Essex at the Chambers. So here in Singapore, I'm based at Maxwell Chambers Suites. And so I actually work from home on Mondays generally, and then I go out networking and doing all sorts of things to raise the profile of the Chambers Tuesday to Thursday. But on Fridays, I run my own business development and executive coaching consultancy. And so that involves really helping lawyers who are stuck or who build their book of business, grow in their confidence when it comes to business development and marketing, growing their personal brand and things like that.
So for us here in the States, we don't have the distinction between barristers and solicitors and don't really know what the chambers is. So explain that a little bit to our audience so they'll understand more how that works.
That's right. In America, you have the attorney, and an attorney is able to both be a solicitor and a barrister. So in the UK, we have a split profession. Those who do the client care and mostly paperwork in the office in a law firm. So those are solicitors, and those who go to court and advocate for their clients. So they're the professional advocates. and they are called barristers. So solicitors work in a law firm, but barristers are self-employed individuals, and they work in a set of rooms which together are called a chambers. So in more old-fashioned English, a room is called a chamber. And so a collection of rooms, or also known as a set, is known as a chambers. And in the olden days, a bunch of barristers would get together and share costs. So they would share they'd rent a building and each take a room, and then share a clerk. And the clerk is the person who negotiates fees for them and organizes all the administration and collects the fees and does all of that kind of thing, books dates in and hearings in the diary, etc., and generally looks after the working life of that barrister. So it is quite different. And it's still very traditional, with gowns and sometimes with wigs in court, but it's a very learned and highly respected career.
Nice. It really is fascinating, the difference. And what do you do for your barristers? What's your role?
So my role is head of business development for Asia Pacific. And so being based here in Singapore, I try to raise the profile of the chambers here in Singapore, but most of our barristers are based in London and internationally. So we have 84 barristers and 20 full-time arbitrators. So it's a sizable number of people. Traditionally, barristers' chambers used to be quite small with maybe, 3 or 4 barristers, but these days they are very large. We're by no means the largest. There are some with over 200.
Wow.
So yes, so we have 84. And my role is to ensure that our local relationships with clients are well nurtured, that I arrange events. So I host a monthly 20 lunch club where our clients, so mainly solicitors at law firms, can get together and meet each other and potentially refer business to each other. So I do things like that. I try to raise the profile of the individual barristers by showcasing them, say in webinars or seminars, in-house events, also by making sure that they get good rankings in the legal directories, but any opportunity to make sure that I can matchmake. So when I'm visiting the clients and I'm finding out their challenges and the kind of things that they're working on, they may then come to me and say, I need, someone with a specialism in shipping, or I've got this case involving, cybersecurity or cryptocurrency, or I might need someone in civil fraud. So then I look at my, all my barristers and I think who would be the best. And it is a lot about matching personality, expertise, and all sorts and previous cases that they have done. Ideally, finding someone who has done something very similar so that they really, really know that area and they can really serve, the clients and the law firm. So the client instructs the law firm and the law firm instructs the barrister. So the barrister's client is actually the law firm, and we don't tend to deal direct with the client.
I see.
So that's sort of an arm's length. Yeah.
I see. Well, you're a real connector in building relationships between the barristers and the solicitors.
That's right. That's my main goal, to be a connector.
Great. Tell me about your coaching business. Who do you help and what kind of problems do you help them solve?
So when it comes to coaching, I find that the people who tend to be seeking me out are quite often actually in-house lawyers. Quite a number are Singaporean ladies in their early 40s. They find themselves either stuck or lacking purpose, or perhaps wanting to make a career transition, or they're dealing with perhaps things like perfectionism or just a lack of self-confidence. So quite often it'll be something on, leadership, or how can they get ahead in a profession where they feel it's very hard for women, especially mothers, do encounter a lot of difficult things that mean, especially if they're returning to the law after a career break, it can be tough to find the confidence to get a new job. So people returning into the law are quite often clients. But then from law firms, I do have a number of more senior lawyers who are looking to make partnership. So they've been told, start to bring in the work. You've done all of these hours, but now as a partner, so quite often they'll get made up before they have a book, which seems pretty unfair. But that does actually happen quite a lot in Asia. I know that probably doesn't happen in the States, where you probably have to prove yourself in order to be made up. But here in Singapore,
interrupt you.
yeah.
Explain what made up means. That's not a term we use in the US.
Okay, so in law firms generally in the UK and internationally, especially in Asia too, we will have you'll go in as a trainee, and then you'll qualify and be called an associate. You sometimes get called junior associate or associate, and then it'll be senior associate, and then you might have a transition stage called of counsel or special counsel. And then the ultimate is to be made partner.
I see.
And so partner, often there is a junior partner status, which is a salaried partner, where you are called partner, but actually you do not have a share of equity. And then you may or may not make equity, depending on how far you get. So within the hierarchy, there are quite a number of steps. But when you're made partner, the expectation of the billable hours goals, then you then actually have to also bring in work. So originate new work, new clients, bring them in and open new files and be seen to be a partner in the business.
And you help some of your coaching clients with that process of building their book of business?
That's right. I certainly try to. It is, is not so easy. But a part of that is growing in self-confidence. So helping them really define, what are their niche areas? Why do they like those areas? What value do they add? What are their passions and purpose? How can they really help people? What's unique about them? And how to be authentic. And then to really look at what are the types of business development that they like. It's very important that they don't force themselves to do things that they're not comfortable with. So if they're not big on networking at massive conferences, they should find other ways that they enjoy, because forcing yourself to do things just really doesn't work. And so if they're good at writing and they can use, say, LinkedIn to write great articles and great posts, that can be a fantastic way. They should ensure, though, that if they they're not keen on big events, that they then go out and meet people one-to-one. So they can use LinkedIn to reach out to people on a one-on-one basis and go for a coffee or a lunch and get to know people at a much deeper level. But certainly if you're a lawyer, you cannot escape the fact that it is a relationship business. So you have to be good with people, if you want to get to the higher ranks of partner. But if you want to be a service partner and be in the background and do work, and I think that is possible in some firms, but certainly not all. So the pressure to bring in work, I think, is there.
That's really so true. And what I've learned is in law school, they teach us how to study. There's no people connection there. It's somewhat competitive. Then you become a barrister or solicitor or attorney, and you're working really hard at being a lawyer. But nowhere along there do they teach us how to build a book of business, how to brand ourselves, how to market ourselves, how to get clients. No one teaches that in law school, or really mentors us that in our first couple of years. And so here you may have clients who are made up or became a partner, and there's an expectation they have a certain size book of business, they don't have a clue how to do that. And that's not necessarily consistent with the skill set that they've learned as a new attorney. It's not necessarily the same skills.
That's so true. And I think, that's the common complaint that you hear from attorneys, isn't it? That they're suddenly, after billing all of those hours, they're shoved out there and told, right, come on, you have to meet these targets to bring in work. But they haven't really had the chance to build up to that. And certainly a network is not something that you can build overnight. So I would say to any young lawyers listening now, start to get on LinkedIn straight away, start to meet with friends. By the time you get to a certain age, all your friends will also be a certain age, and they'll be in businesses, they'll be directors and professionals in other businesses, and you can tap into them and their networks. You mustn't forget family and friends either. It's so important just to be out and about, thinking about your area and how that applies to the real world. But I'd say the number one thing that would help any lawyer is to really work on their listening skills. So I know that you talk a lot about that as well, Gary, but listening skills, very few lawyers are good at listening. They want to tell you everything, but that's not what clients need.
That is so true. I think we like to argue, we like to espouse our views, but the ability to really listen and listen empathetically is so important, because people feel so honored and respected and appreciated when they're heard. And I think that's a really important skill. What are some of the major stresses that you see lawyers facing in the legal profession today, whether it's your clients or not?
I think right now people are on the verge of burnout, because although there was a short period of uncertainty when the pandemic first set in 2.5 years ago, it suddenly kicked off, and people have never been busier. Actually, here in Asia, people are inundated with work, and so there aren't enough hours in the day. And also this remote work, although it sounds so great, wow, you can work from home, it has that there are more Zooms than ever before. People are working round the clock, because many people here in particular have global roles. And so, they have to service London and New York and then other parts of Asia. And if you had energy, you could literally be working 24/7. But the truth is that lawyers are not good at pacing themselves. They're not very good at self-care. And there is so much work, and they are such perfectionists that they do end up working really, really long hours. And so when I talk to lawyers and I'm coaching them, I do really try to help them with productivity and about boundary setting and being a bit more organized with themselves. So being a lot more intentional about their diary. So something really simple like saying, I don't do Zoom on a Friday. So when someone asks you, let's put in a Zoom, you can offer them the 4 other days of the week, but ring fence Friday for thinking time, for finishing off the work that you need to do so that you can have a nice, relaxing weekend. And other things like thinking about your boundaries and not always automatically saying yes to everything, because the truth is that you can't do everything. And there's nothing worse than you saying yes and then actually letting someone down last minute. Because I know a ton of lawyers that have a very bad habit of saying, yes, I'll do that. And then, 5 minutes before they're due to deliver, they tell you they haven't done it because they had too much work. Now, that's worse than if you say no in the beginning, because you say, I'm really sorry, would love to help you, but I'm actually very overcommitted right now. It would be a disservice of me to say I could do this when I can't.
That is so well said. The importance of being able to say no is so critical. I know even on a personal level, people sometimes ask me to do things, and I don't like that they ask me to do it. I don't really want to do it, but I say yes to be accommodating or perhaps people pleasing. And now I've learned it's okay to say no. I'm sorry, I can't. I have something else I have to do, or some other priority. And particularly in the legal field, when we get so busy, We're focused on making money, bringing in more business, pleasing our firm. And it's so easy to say yes to everything. And then what happens is we get a certain number of years along that path and we hate what we're doing because we've taken on too much, and it just doesn't matter what money we're making. It doesn't matter because we're not happy and we're not fulfilled.
That's absolutely right. And people just get so disheartened and so downtrodden by the, lack of autonomy. Dr. Lowry Richard has written some amazing, interesting insights into lawyer personality. And one of the most motivating factors for lawyers is to have autonomy. That's that sense of control over their day. But the truth is that most lawyers have very little control because they're really beholden to their clients and to management, to other partners, to all sorts of things. And I think over time, the stress and the feeling of that lack of control, the lack of autonomy, it really wears them down, and it plays havoc with their mental health. They feel very very dissatisfied with their lifestyle because constantly saying no to the things they want to say yes to and yes to the things they want to say no to.
That's so true. How can we lawyers grow our autonomy and our having control over our life? That is such a problem, and a lot of lawyers feel that. What suggestions do you have to a lawyer to become more autonomous and not controlled by all those forces and circumstances around them, whether it be clients or other attorneys or whatever?
I think the most important thing for any lawyer is to find the right fit for them, because within the legal industry, there are so many opportunities. But you have to think about yourself and your fit. So, there are a lot of people for whom a fantastic Wall Street white shoe firm is the best fit for them. They're driven, they've got the energy, they want to put in the hours. Brilliant. But another person might find that they want to work in, let's say, a business, so go in-house in a health food business because they're passionate about health and the values of that company particularly speak to them. So if you have a passion for something, let's say it's sports, you could become a sports lawyer, or you're passionate about technology and you want to do something in legal tech. It's about finding what you're good at and what you're interested in, and then finding a place for you to do that. And then when you're there, deciding whether the people around you, your colleagues, are the right fit for you as well. And so you can't write things off just saying, the law is awful, I hate it. It's not. It's usually that you're just in the wrong place. You're either with the wrong team, the wrong senior who's supposed to be mentoring you. But if you don't get on, you don't get on. Face it and move on. So it's a question of finding your people, your tribe, your right fit. And there's so much. You can be an independent legal consultant. You can be a sole practitioner. I mean, personally, I find either being a consultant or a sole practitioner is the ultimate in autonomy, because you just work the hours you want for yourself. However, in a large firm, if you are in a large firm and you're a partner there, again, as I mentioned, it's a lot about mindfulness. It's about you yourself being organized, you ring fencing your diary, you being more efficient, you controlling what you say yes and no to, and how you handle your clients. Very often, the deadlines are false deadlines. And these are the things that most young lawyers get most upset about. It's when the client goes, right, here's a piece of work, and the partner doesn't say, right, thank you for giving me this piece of work. Tell me what your deadline is. When do you need this? And often the in-house lawyer will go, well, I won't get round to reviewing it until maybe next Wednesday. So you've got 4 days to do it. But the lawyer, the partner, will always go back to the office and tell their juniors, right, we want to, he said he wants it on his desk on Wednesday. Let's have it on their desk tomorrow morning by 9.
Right.
And it's like, well, excuse me, but that wasn't the deadline. Why are you forcing everyone to work overtime and nights and all sorts of crazy stuff when that was not a true deadline? So I hate false deadlines. I really don't believe in them. I think they're very bad for mental health. So I think that lawyers can just get a bit more control, be more self-disciplined, not be so urgent, and also to respect other people's time. So don't make
Well
people
said.
stay late.
Well said.
Yeah.
I know a lot of what you talked about autonomy to me had to do with the individual setting their own goals for their life. What do they want their life to look like? How much money do they have to make? How many hours they want to work? What is their passion in law? What kind of field they want to work in? And so often we get sucked into our first job, our second job, and we're 10 years in and we've never really figured out what we want to do yet. And finding our own path is so important because law offers us the chance to do so many different things. Look at you, you were in BigLaw, and now you have this fascinating role doing business development for your barristers. Not maybe something you thought about when you're in law school, but that's where it took you and that's where you chose to be, living the life of your dreams. You talked a lot about wellness and you know how critical it is to me. I'm sober in recovery. I've seen the stresses lawyers in the States have. I'm learning now that you may have barristers and solicitors and not attorneys, but they have the same stresses, and it leads to real mental health issues. I've seen some terrible studies about how many lawyers have suicidal thoughts, what the percentage of addiction is in law versus other professions. And it's really kind of scary. And I'm grateful that folks like you, Laura, are chatting about this now, and it's an appropriate topic for discussion, whereas before it was like a hidden secret. And what suggestions do you have for lawyers who are working too hard and stressed to really maintain their mental health and take care of themselves?
I would say it's really important to have outside interests. So even if you don't have a hobby right now, think of one and go and start one. So you always need to have something to look forward to because you're going to have some really tough times. So things like a day and get it in your diary. Make sure you do one at least a quarter, every quarter. Look forward to those things. Ring fence time with family or friends or whatever it is that you want to do. Make sure you prioritize good things in your life. In your day, always have one thing during the day that's going to be nice for you. So thinking about whether that's lunch with a friend, because people say, oh, I don't eat lunch. I have a sandwich at my desk. No, that is a really bad habit, folks. You should be out networking for every meal, and it should be either for a breakfast or a lunch or a dinner, but you can actually do that every single day.
Wow.
And it doesn't always need to be clients, it can be your co-workers. Really important to do publicity for yourself and building your personal brand in your firm, because we all know it's very political. It's who you know, who you hang out with. Everybody can do that. You will learn so much from other people. I think that, women, for example, they quite often will say, well, I don't want to do socializing after work. That's perfectly fine, ladies. Why don't you have breakfast? So organize a lovely breakfast with someone that you want to catch up with, and what can you learn from them? Take a client out for lunch, surprise them with something fun, and tell them about your outside interests. Join a choir. You can meet a whole bunch of people who may know other people who are in business. And if you're the only lawyer in the choir, you're very likely to get some really interesting leads. So find things where you can socialize with others. Maybe you could do group exercise and join a gym and go to an exercise class, or just making sure that you do a lot of walking, get some fresh air, get rid of the cobwebs, make sure that you're thinking about these things. But another priority is sleep. Lawyers don't prioritize their sleep, and they must. I'm actually thinking of campaigning for a human right to a minimum of 8 hours sleep a night. I think it is a human right because sleep regenerates your cells. It has been shown over and over again that people who suffer from sleep deprivation will develop mental health issues later on, and lawyers are very much subject to that. And because of the lack of sleep, they are also very, very stressed. and their immunity is impaired, which means that they are then much more prone to very debilitating disease and, heart conditions, cancers, and things like that. So prioritizing sleep, you must recharge your cells and regenerate, get rid of toxins, and recharge. We are like a mobile phone. We are like an electric car. We cannot go on indefinitely. We must prioritize self-care, but we also have to live for today, because we can't take for granted that tomorrow is there. And ultimately, no law firm is going to write on your headstone what a great employee you were. So, enjoy being a lawyer, but enjoy your life as well.
Yeah, I love reading the book Everyday Legacy, because you talked about the headstone, and it's not about what name we get in the legal field, what our reputation is, or particularly how much money we made or how big of a house we leave to our kids. It's about how do we want to be remembered by those we love and care. Do we want to be remembered as the person who worked every Saturday and Sunday churning away at the law firm, or the person who showed up for his kids' games and connected with them and supported them? Some really amazing insights about wellness there. Laura, I call this the Free Lawyer Podcast because, to me, a fulfilling life is one where I feel true personal freedom. What does true personal freedom mean to you?
It's designing a life that suits you, enables you to be true to yourself, and every day do things that bring you joy.
Wow, that's wonderful. You're a beacon of light in our profession. I love what you do, not only to support your barristers, but showing all of us how to connect better as humans with other people, and how to live a life that is healthy and one that we choose to live. And I think those are great thoughts.
Thank you so much, Gary.
So for those who like to get in touch with you, what's the best way for our listeners to either find you or reach out to you?
Well, we did mention LinkedIn, so they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn.com/in/Lara Quie. So you can just search under my name, and no doubt you'll put the link in the show notes as well. So they can find me on LinkedIn. I also have a website for laraquieassociates.com, just one word. But LinkedIn, definitely you'll see me around on there.
Well, Lara, thank you so much for joining us today. I think what you had to share is just of amazing benefit to our audience. And you're just really inspirational to me on many, many levels. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Gary.
So for all of those who listened today, thank you so much for being here. As always, please be well, be safe, and be free.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Free Lawyer Podcast. Wherever you are listening, if you enjoyed what I shared, please leave me a rating and review. I would appreciate hearing more about what you like best and what topics you might like me to cover in future episodes. If you are interested in experiencing a more fulfilling and a more successful life, please contact me at www.garymiles.net, where you can schedule a free discovery call with me so I can learn more about you, your challenges, and your dreams. I appreciate each and every one of you, and have a great rest of your day. Thanks to all of you for your support.